Thanks for watching this Sunburnt Country Music interview. You're about to see my interview with Mitchell Steele, whom I first saw perform at the Tamworth Country Music Festival over a decade ago. And he hasn't released any recorded music until now. His new single, Worn Out West, is fantastic. I cannot get it out of my mind. He's an amazing singer, it's a great song, and there's an album to come. So I hope you enjoy meeting Mitchell. Stand by. Mitchell Steele is a singer and songwriter from far north Queensland who has been performing for years and is now releasing his first single, The Outstanding Worn Out West. He was also a graduate at this year's Senior Academy of Country Music, but there's a lot more I have to ask him about. So I'm really looking forward to talking to him. Hello, Mitchell. Great to meet you.
Hey, Sophie, nice to meet you as well.
I have so many questions because you have this very interesting life, but I'm going to start at the beginning. When I'm going to ask you about when your life in music began. Did you play an instrument when you were younger?
Yeah, I'm lucky to be one of six children. So I have five older siblings, and I have a dad who plays guitar and sings, and a mother who sings and plays ukulele. So we all pretty well play guitar to some extent and sing to some extent. So I was really lucky. That's kind of how I was introduced to music and picked up a guitar at the age of 10. My sister showed me four chords on the guitar and I drove everyone crazy.
I'm surprised you didn't pick up the uke though, because I would think for a kid, like a ukulele is probably a more accessible instrument.
Well, the ukulele came along later. I did learn ukulele and then passed that on to mum. So she couldn't play an instrument for so long, being a busy mum of six, of course. She didn't have time to pick up a guitar and practice for a few hours a day. But eventually, yeah, I got to teach her to play ukulele, and she's far better than me now. She's great.
So there was there ever a temptation to become like the Von Trapp family singers, but the Steele family singers?
I'd say there probably was a bit of a dream in all of our eyes. There was a time when Dad bought my brother a banjo and myself a fiddle. So there was dreams that we would at least move away from everyone playing the one guitar in the house, or but that never turned into anything, unfortunately. I was going to be the fiddle player. I was so into that, but it never happened.
So you did actually start playing fiddle quite a bit.
Oh, no, no, not at all.
Okay.
It was like we're in the bush, right? So it lived under the cupboard, and when we pulled it out, it was like the resin. I don't know even any terms about violin, but if I ever pulled it across those strings, man, people would just run for the hills.
So at what age did you begin singing? Because you do have this amazing voice, and it obviously has to start somewhere. Did you just open your mouth one day and think, oh, that sounds okay?
Um, I think my siblings told me that I was a good singer. I have memory of mum putting music on a Saturday morning, and it was time to clean the house because the music was up loud. She'd start, we'd all sort of start. I was pretty young then, but I remember the older siblings groaning about it. And around then, I would sing along really loud to music, and it was always country music like Waylon and Willie and Bobby Bear and that old school stuff, and a bit of newer stuff, the Chicks and Garth Brooks, Alan Jackson. Those guys are really popular at the time too. Yeah, I'd say probably one of my siblings came and told me that I sounded good, and yeah, probably just kept doing it.
Yeah. So Garth Brooks comes up quite a bit, actually, in terms of being an influential artist for Australian country music artists, but also Australian country music artists around a certain age. So I'm wondering what it was in particular about his songs that appealed to you.
I think it was mostly the electricity of watching him do a live show, and even just hearing him on a tape, because we had tapes back then, and CDs were a thing, and it became popular to release a live version of your CDs. And Garth Brooks really took hold of that industry. I think he really dominated the DVD world and the CD world. And I can remember getting a little box set, DVD set of Garth Brooks live, and it was all different shows around the world. So where he would sing in Ireland, the song Ireland, you know, Ireland, I am coming home. And the crowd is just this sea of Irish people are so proud and patriotic, you know. I just got goosebumps thinking about it now. I just would revel in how much people loved him and how electrifying he could make your body. It's just incredible.
Yeah. Well, now that you said that, I remembering, yes, he was so dominant for such a long period of time. And that point you make about him sort of dominating that live DVD space as well. It is a great way to attach people to you as an artist.
Yeah.
Obviously couldn't happen as much now because there's so much coming in from all over the place, but at the time, amazing.
And he was like my girls would have a poster of a pop sensation or something in their room. That was mine, you know. I was so malleable from the age of like 5 to 12. And that's when he was really popular in my life. So he was just such a thrill. I would fangirl over meeting him and hope to God one day I do get to meet him. But yeah, he was popular. But I've had many wonderful musicians that I've followed and listened to for a long time. Yeah.
Who do you, I mean, obviously when you're young and you're singing along to songs, that's just, I guess we start to mimic as we're as kids, mimicking who we're singing along to. So that shapes your voice to a certain extent. Do you think he's
Yeah.
the most influential person on your voice, or are there other singers who since then have actually had more influence?
Oh, good question. I would say Garth Brooks has had a lot of influence on, yeah, on my tone, I suppose, and definitely that probably created a foundation. And I can remember when I was young, I was always singing girl songs because I had such a high voice, right? So
Yeah.
I'd sing Shania Twain and Casey Chambers and the Chicks or the Dixie Chicks as they were known back then. Yeah, so I guess that sort of shaped the range of my voice. And then Rascal Flats, man, they just, oh my God, vocally, I can't think of his name, the lead singer at the moment, but vocally, what an incredible talent. And I just would try to be like him all the time.
Right. Interesting. So, as mentioned at the top, you grew up in Far North Queensland, or FNQ, as we like to call it, and there are vast distances between properties and towns there. So that's that's part of your day-to-day reality. As a kid who's interested in music, I would think there aren't that many places to get to where you might be able to play and be part of a music community. So did you feel like, obviously you had your siblings and your parents performing music, but did you feel like you had any sort of connection to other people who were performing music?
Unfortunately, no. There's not a lot of the arts out in far north Queensland. We would have youth groups come through, and maybe one of those guys could play a guitar. Or I can remember we had a pastor that used to come through and sing us Bible songs, and he was really cool. I loved having him visit because it was someone else that did a different style, and yet it was still really fun and engaging for us as kids. Um, but unfortunately for myself, yeah, I didn't get any better training than I had from my family. And I was really lucky and blessed to have that. Even when I went to boarding school, there was sort of no resources there either. And we tried to have a guitar teacher for a little while, but I was as good as her. And I'm not that good on guitar as it is. So things were a bit tough in that sense. So when you ask me about music theory,
Mhm.
wouldn't have a clue. But if you want to jam out and have a play, then yeah, I absolutely can.
Well, I guess music theory is great if you're going to be a composer, I suppose, and if you're going to be in an orchestra. But I would imagine a lot of working musicians, songwriters, singer-songwriters don't have a background in music theory.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't really know, but for me, I don't have a background in music, and I definitely don't think you need one. Put
Right.
it that way. But having said that, I would have loved to have learnt to read music and maybe see how far that life could have taken me. I might have ended up in the theatre or somewhere, and might still, who knows? But yeah, the instrument world and the singing world, and there's just so much more that could have happened had I lived in Melbourne or Sydney or something like that.
Yeah.
They just have more resources.
Yeah. Well, you got somewhat close to being in the theatre, and I will get to that. But first of all, I'd like to talk about what happened when you were 15. So you mentioned you went to boarding school, but at 15 you started working full time as a stockman on
Yeah.
a cattle station. So obviously school was out the door at that stage.
Yeah, I just didn't pay attention very well. And being sent to boarding school too, you could get away with more because mum wasn't there to give you a smack or whatever. um, but yeah, I definitely, yeah, boarding school wasn't for me. Primary school, I was great. Like I learned enough about English and enough maths that I could go and chase a cow around a paddock. So yeah, when it got to 15, it was you're either earning or learning. So
Mhm.
I had to pick and I had to go and earn some money. I got a job out near the Northern Territory border on a place called, what was it? Lorraine Station, which is quite a
Right.
lovely name for a cattle station. And it was over 1,000,000 acres and quite flat, nothing I'd ever really seen before. There was no trees for miles. And when you did see trees, it was a creek or a river, you could follow it. Um, yeah, so pretty daunting for a 15-year-old to go out and start living that life.
And station life is a particular life. I know someone who grew up on Killarney Station and in the Northern Territory, and the stations all have their various days of things going on. There are rodeos, there's camp drafting, and I know from talking to her, people move around to stations for these sorts of days. It's like a whole big community in and of itself. But what used to amaze me was the distances everyone would travel just to basically connect with other people. It's like, oh, we're going to drive for however many hours to get to this station that's having this particular camp draft on, mainly to catch up with friends.
Yeah, yeah, just to mingle and socialize. You could spend 6 months in a paddock under a tarp with the same two blokes just putting up barbed wire fences every day, going to sleep every night, putting up barbed wire fences. It can be really isolating. So you do anything, you go anywhere for a hint of a bit of a good time or a hint of a drink of a beer, or you'd be in the car and gone.
So, given that that's what you were doing from the age of 15 and you did have this musical background, were you singing to the barbed wire fences at that stage, or did that go on hold?
Yeah, I always have my guitar, and I always did. I just always had one with me, and people kind of appreciated it. I think, especially out in those places, because what else do you have? We didn't have Bluetooth speakers. You wouldn't leave the car on to play music. Um, yeah, so it was a blessing. I had a guitar, and it kept me busy, and it kept me writing and improving my craft. So yeah, it was kind of invited, if anything. Did you bring your guitar? Like, come work for me. Bring your guitar.
Yeah, right. We get built-in entertainment and a stockman.
Yeah. Yeah, but I have to do all the work during the day and then work at night.
Yeah, yeah, right. Good. I hope they fed you well. Let's put it that
Yeah,
way.
usually.
So you mentioned that you were writing. At what stage did you start writing songs?
I was probably like 9 or 10 when I first wrote a song. And it was around that time I told you my sister taught me 4 chords on the guitar and I
Mhm.
drove everyone a bit crazy. That's because I learned every song I could possibly learn on those 4 guitar chords and drove everyone crazy. And I thought maybe I should write a song, write a new song to these 4 chords that I know. Yeah, and that it was a song that I wrote about my mum, which was pretty cute. I'd sit in my room and write a little bit, and then I'd run to the kitchen while she was cooking dinner, and I'd ask her like little interview questions that were almost weirdly specific, like was did granddad used to say anything about me when I was a baby, so I could finish a line that I'd started in a song saying grandpa said to mum da da da. But that song ended up being one of the cutest things ever, and such a pure joy thing to have done, because it won me a little competition and at a talent quest in at Walkerman, Mariba. And yeah, it was just the first time I'd seen my own lyrics do something to someone. It was the first time I'd written a song. It was bizarre, but a lot of people cried. It must have been a really cute song. So yeah, that's my first memory of writing. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing that you won an award for your very first song, but also great songwriting technique, right? Like you were going for the specifics, and specificity is universal, and you were doing your research. You went and spoke to your
Yeah.
mum. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was from the heart. It was what was I like to write about. And it wasn't, it was just the love of my mum. That's all I knew at the age of 10. So yeah.
Was there ever a sense, because you had these five older siblings, that you were either trying to compete with them or impress them with things you were doing with music?
I was always trying to impress them, and were they're not easily impressed, but they would pretend to be for me, because they're just so supportive. And everyone is my mom, my dad, and all my siblings, my brothers and sisters. They have been nothing but supportive from the day dot, and I just can't be any more grateful for that. And I talk about them all the time, but I owe them everything. Yeah.
Well, they probably actually feel they're lucky to have you as well, making such beautiful music. So,
Oh, yeah, they're more lucky to have me. You're
yeah.
right.
And your musical development must have really continued while you were working as a stockman, because by 18 you joined the Australian Outback Spectacular on the Gold Coast. And so this is, I was trying to get my head around this logistically, because this has actually lasted for about 6 years that you did this. So you're working, far west of the state at 15, and then obviously for at least another couple of years, and then somehow you're on the East Coast in the Gold Coast, and you're in a cast. So how did that happen?
Um, it's a long story, and I won't go into it too much. But I auditioned when I was 16. I did a video audition, so you just video yourself on a horse, stopping, doing a rollback. I sang a couple of songs, and then I got asked to come and do an audition in person, and I just couldn't make it. So by the time I turned 18, I actually went with a friend of mine who was a photographer for a magazine. Her name's Katie Driver, a photographer for a horse magazine. So she was going and wanted someone to go with her. So I went, and we went backstage. She took some photos. And when the time came to watch the show, the bosses came and saw me, the management, and said, "Are you Mitchell Steele?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "We remember your audition video. Would you stay and do a quick audition for us after the show? All you have to do is jump on a horse, ride, same thing, ride around, stop, do a few rollbacks, and yeah, we'll have a chat." And I was like, "Sure, I'd love to," like nothing like that had ever happened to me. And then when I watched the show, I was just blown away. I had never seen anything like that in my life. It's a dinner theater. You get a 3-course meal while you're sitting there and watching a full arena. And it's just magical as well. Like, one end of the arena is a full white wall that has a massive projector on it and these big sliding doors that horses come galloping out of. Like, it was just magic for me to see something like that, and for them to ask me if I'd like to be a part of it. I just jumped at the opportunity. And during the show, I drank maybe 3 or 4 beers, and yeah, really nailed that audition and got the job.
They'd probably already decided they wanted you based on that earlier video audition.
Maybe, yeah.
So obviously by this time you're an accomplished horseman, and growing up where you grew up and working as a stockman, obviously a lot of time on horseback. But I'm guessing that this role in the Outback Spectacular involved you singing while on horseback.
Well, yeah, not on horseback straight away, but they do have pre-show entertainment, which is just as the crowd's ushered into the main venue. There's a big bar area, and they have someone up there that sings to them for an hour, and they're part of the cast. But you go up as yourself. You're not a character, and you just play guitar and sing for the 1,000 people a night before they are ushered into the main arena, and I can jump off stage and bolt to backstage and get my horse ready and go out and do the show. So yeah, it really did start me having a presence on stage, singing, and finding out my place within all of that.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't sound that dissimilar to what you were doing as a stockman, which is basically working 2 jobs.
Yes.
Working during the day and then singing at night. This was just
Yeah.
reversed. singing first.
I was built for it. I was built for it. Yeah.
So imagine, yeah, this is even though you've been in the talent quest and you've done some performance, this would have been the time where you most learnt stagecraft, I would think. And it sounds like it wasn't necessarily from observing other people doing it if you were standing there on your own and performing. So did it feel like a baptism by fire that you're like, whoa, I've now got to be here and entertain these people. I'm going to have to figure this out.
Um, I yeah, it was definitely sink or swim. And thinking back now, it was probably a real pivotal moment for me. And even like I feel like I could get a bit emotional just because when you push yourself through something like that, I mean, the other side of it, it changed my whole life, right?
Right.
So if I couldn't get on that stage and just sing for that crowd, and I was shaking, like I had an hour set, 18 years old, and they just keep funneling through in front of you and building this crowd up. I was a nervous wreck. And to think now that I not only pushed through it, but felt really proud of myself and excited to do it again and again and again. Yeah, I couldn't imagine if I didn't do it.
Yeah. Well, and it is extraordinary because it's an hour for one thing, and that's a lot of singing, particularly day after day after day, or night after night after night, and then also you're jumping on horseback. And I'm interested because you mentioned the tone of your voice, and I love tone in singing voices. I do think you can have anyone be a great technical singer, but if the tone really marks out individual voices, but also I think is what resonates with the listener. So you talked about learning tone from Garth Brooks. I'm wondering if during that time, the Outback Spectacular, with all the singing you were doing and learning how to be a performer and connect with an audience, if your tone actually started to change because you started to think about what connects with an audience, or you started to see and understand what connects with an audience.
Definitely, yeah, definitely my tone changed, and I think it's still changing. My voice has changed a lot since I was 10, to think back. That's quite a few years ago now. So I do think Outback Spectacular, you learn stamina. That's one thing. Vocal stamina is really important in our industry. And I learned a lot about what my limits were, how much I really could do and how much I couldn't, how late I could stay out at night, those kinds of things, because they're really important for vocal health, you know. So having that consistent place to be, stage to be on, to sing, it taught me a lot. Yeah. And the tone, I don't know, it kind of just came.
Yeah, right. And also, obviously this was a job on horseback as well, and you've been riding for a long time, and you still work with horses. So I'm wondering if you were put on a horse as a very little kid, and just
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah, once again, just my family all ride horses. Yeah, part of the job, I suppose, being out in the bush. But I really loved horses, and I knew that I had something different with horses. I don't know. I'd see my older brother work horses mostly. He's 11 years older than me, Dallas, and there was this real gentleness to him when he would break in and train a young horse or teach a young horse, a wild horse, to face up and be touched for the first time. The gentleness of the nature and the body language was probably what got me hooked on that. And I just knew that not only Dallas knew something more than the old ringers that I'd seen with horses, but he was passing it down to me as well. And I got to learn so much.
Yeah, because you are a horse breaker now, and you still work with horses.
Yeah. I broke in horses for years. I did my first one when I was 16 or 17 on my own. And I have been bucked off plenty of them, don't you worry. I think you get better at falling off than you do at staying on. Well, I did personally, but I still fall off, don't worry. Yeah, and it's a hard thing on your body, but it is one of the most, second to music, it is one of the most magical feelings in the world to get on a horse for the first time and be trusted to be the one to ride it and build a relationship.
Yeah, I remember going riding because I'd done a little bit of riding very much not anything like yours. But years ago, I was riding with someone who, and she had a horse, and I was riding on another horse that she owned, but didn't ride as much. And she had this obviously very particular relationship with the horse that she was riding all the time. And she just said, "Well, look, you're sitting on their spine. So it's a really, it's such a close connection." And she said, if you think about what it would be like to sit on another person's spine, like that's, you have to be really mindful of that relationship. It was words to that effect. I'd never thought about it like that before. And I was like, oh yeah, yes, that connection between a horse and a rider, and the way that a great rider can signal certain things to the horse without doing much at all is really
Yeah, it's that whole thing of language, right? As humans, we have language. We can speak to each other. Horses just don't have that. And one thing about horses is they cannot and don't lie. Like if you reach out to pat a horse and they don't want to be patted, they will move away. There's not a lot that goes on between their ears other than the present moment. So I find that really beautiful. And then being able to create a language within that, and using your body and like this silent communication and getting a result. There's something really magical about that, and definitely had me hooked. When the first time I saw my brother Dallas work a horse and break a horse in, I was just blown away that there was nothing rough and tumble about it. It was all tenderness and all pressure and release, and it just blew my mind.
Yeah. And just what you're talking about there about learning how to use your body, and how the human body works in relationship to horses and riding. As a singer, of course, you can get the best results out of your voice when you know yourself really well, when you know how your body's working. It's not, your voice is not this isolated thing that's in the throat or coming from the lungs, and it's a mind instrument, and the mind is in the body. So I'm wondering how much you think your work with horses has influenced you as a singer. And also I know that you have like training in aerial silks and things like that. So you obviously are used to pushing your own body to do things. So that kind of body mind awareness, I would imagine, feeds in quite a bit to your singing.
Yeah, I suppose it does. I wasn't vocally trained. I never really had any training growing up. I've recently had some in the last few years and have found it really beneficial. And it all comes down to breathing.
Mhm.
And horses are, yeah, similar in that same way. If you can relax and breathe, your animal and your energy tends to be relaxed and calm. So I definitely find a similarity there with music. If I can breathe, usually I can sing. So if I'm feeling tense or nervous on stage, it's a few deep breaths and you almost always break through it. So yeah, definitely it helped.
Right. So you were working with horses and also doing music, and at a certain point you entered Star Maker. So in 2011 you were a Star Maker grand finalist, and 2013 you're also in The Voice. Now I saw you play Tamworth. I can still remember it because you were so amazing live upstairs at the Tudor Hotel. I think I must have heard. I remember I got Dallas's album, so I know that he released music as well. And I thought, oh, this is Dallas Steele's brother, and I think he's been on The Voice, and he's playing upstairs at the Tudor, and I'll go and see him. And you were just this extraordinary entertainer and singer. But that was quite a while ago. That was over a decade ago, and I remember thinking, well, I hope he releases music soon. And so
Yeah.
you took a break from because I don't think you were back at the festival for quite a while.
Yeah, I did 4 years in a row at the festival, Tamworth Country Music Festival. And I was working at the Outback Spectacular at the time, I believe. And to see the difference in my performance and my audience over 4 years. So like visiting the Tudor, I played the same place every time I went to Tamworth. It was the Tudor Hotel upstairs. Have me back, guys. And by the fourth year, I can remember walking in to the room and it was full of people. And usually I just walk in, get set up, and people would dwindle in and go, "Oh, this is a good enough place to sit and have a beer." But that fourth year definitely was pretty mind blowing to see not just people, but friends that I know and love, and people in the industry that always support you and love you. And Yeah, that was probably one of the most special moments I'd ever sort of experienced musically out of everything. But I did have a break. I did have a break from music. I always sang, and when I worked at the Outback Spectacular, I stayed for 6 years, but it was on and off. So I did like 2 year stints. And in between that, I was sometimes homesick, and I'd go back to the bush and I'd work with cattle and horses and be around family again. And then I'd come back to the Outback Spectacular and do a new show with them. And luckily, I never burned any bridges and could do that. But I didn't chase music for a while, and I think it was mostly because there was so much development in myself and who I was and where I wanted to be and what sort of music I wanted to write. It takes time to get to know who you are, and it's a work in progress. And I'm currently on the good end of it. So I'm ready to release music. I trust myself. I love myself. That's a really good feeling. And constantly working at it.
I think it takes a lot of patience as an artist to make that decision, because given the voice you had and the experiences you were having on The Voice, for example, you could have thought, okay, well, I really need to capitalize on this. I need to get stuff out. But there was obviously something in you that was prepared to be patient. And yeah, I think it is worthwhile because then you ended up at this year's academy. So that's a commitment as well. That's a decision. It's not a light thing of, oh, I'm just going to head to the academy. You have to apply and be chosen. It's not a big group. So why did you think that now is the right time for academy?
Well, I think over the years I've always considered going to the academy, but it every time I try and do something with music, it's all in, and I think that's why it's a come and go sort of thing for me. It has been in the past, because when you go all in on something and you fall flat, or you're too broke and you have to work, and the cycle, I could just never quite get there. It's very disheartening when that happens. So it was hard to just throw all my eggs in one basket again. I knew that if I was going to do it, I had to do it properly. I had to have a plan, and I had to have help. And so I did. I applied for the academy in Tamworth, and I got in.
Yeah. I can't say I'm shocked that they chose you at all, but it's quite intensive academy. You're writing songs, you're working towards putting on a graduation show. It's not just like a kumbaya around a campfire sort of stuff. So how did you find the process, and did you make some songwriting connections while you were there? As in people you thought, yeah, I want to keep writing with you.
Yeah, I mean, the academy was just a blast. It is so much fun. There's like 30 of us there, and that's just students. And we all play guitar and sing, and it's like home, We're all around a guitar, and we can all just pick it up and play it and join in with each other. So the academy is a blast, an absolute blast. And that's just the social side of it. With the talent that's there is insane as well. These band members and the instrumental students are insane. Any of them could be in a band and go and be on their jelly way, So being around all of the talent is incredible. And the staff, wow, the staff are great. Like, I cannot blow the horn loud enough, Go to the academy. If you're ever thinking about it, apply. You can learn so much. And I was lucky enough, I got to write with Max Jackson and Lynn Botel. We wrote a song together, which I sang around Tamworth Country Music Festival afterwards, and it became quite popular, which was fun. But yeah, I met Kasey Chambers while we were there as well. She is a real sweet lady, and she comes and listens to all of us around in a circle, and we each get to sing a song that we choose, an original or a cover, whatever we like. And it's a few hours of sitting there doing that. So I'm really grateful that she did that. Yeah, we got to hang out afterwards a little, and yeah.
And things went from there because as anyone who's seen your social media will know, you have ended up working with Kasey and Brandon Dodd at Rabbit Hole Recording Studio to not only record but to write together. And this is leading into this album that is coming out at a certain point, but also into Worn Out West, which is your debut single. So I'm wondering if that was the first song you actually worked on with them.
It is. If you go on our socials at the moment, there's an a cappella song that we do, and it's actually called Northern Star. And that was the first song that we wrote together. Brandon and I had written a song earlier that day. We'd finished a song together, and we weren't sure if we'd have much time in the evening to start a new one. She had been busy for the day, and we just weren't sure if we'd get to it. And then Kasey just loves cooking, right? So if she's in the kitchen, she's in a happy place. And Brandon and I were sitting on the island sort of by a kitchen, and we started on a melody, and then we just put some chords to it, and then there was lyrics, and then there was harmonies, and then it became this Northern Star a cappella beautiful church thing that I just think is, so good, so good. And then immediately after that, we began writing Worn Out West. So we sort of segued that evening into a whole new song, starting a new song. And, I just couldn't believe I couldn't count my lucky stars. It's a dream come true to sit on a couch and write with Kasey Chambers. It's incredible.
Except I think everything you've described in terms of your development as an artist is, it makes sense actually, because again, the patience to not put out music at a time when you weren't necessarily ready to do it, or wouldn't have been able to write songs that were true to you. All those years singing, all those years performing for people, understanding who you are as an artist now. I think it's that confluence of things where someone like Kasey herself actually looks at it and goes, I recognize what's going on there. And but it's also a short period of time. Academy finishes sort of halfway through January. We're now in August. You have music coming out, ready to go, and more than one song. So this must have been a very interesting few months for you.
Well, I was lucky enough to get after Tamworth to get to go into like a creative mode. Mm-hmm. So I got to sit for a couple of months and just write, which that came with so many emotions of guilt for not, getting up and being outside and doing things. It came with a lot of emotions internally, trying to dig up things to write about. Mm-hmm. But having that space and working through all of that created such magical songs in such a small amount of time. I've never written songs so fast in my life. And I've also never really been a massive fan of a lot of my songs. I like them, they come out, but some of them, they just don't hit the mark of what I had in my head. So these ones that I wrote for the album, it was probably, I'd say 3 months, and I wrote 16 songs or something. It was insane. And I loved every single one of them. They didn't all make it, but it doesn't mean that they're not something for the future. And it just opened something within me. And it was actually Kasey's advice that sort of set me on a path of creativity.
Which is, it just feels like it was almost meant to be, this connection with her, and also because she and Brandon can produce for you and have done with this song and the others. So Worn Out West, obviously, where the brain wants to go is Born Out West. So, so how did Worn Out West come about?
Well, we were sort of in the middle of writing the song, and that little space came up for some words, and we'd sat for a bit, and Born Out West, and we always try to think of something that just hasn't really been said, and Born Out West has been written and said. So Brando actually said, would it be strange to say you're worn out West? And I said, no, not at all. I think that perfectly encompasses exactly that, that me living out there and working as a stockman and growing up in that lifestyle, and then going and trying to be a performer and, not really succeeding at that 100% to what I would like to, and then going back to the bush, you know, just wearing out that process. And it just felt really right, Worn Out West. And so the name of the song became Worn Out West, and the name of the album is called Worn Out West, which I don't know if people know that or not, but yeah, it's the title track from the album now.
Well, the song feels like it might be your origin story, and so I'm wondering if that is indeed an origin story, then it's totally appropriate that it's the name of the album.
Yeah, it just matches and it works. And I think we said it really nicely, you know. I think this song should be the first one to come out because it says a lot about who I am, and it's done in such a really beautiful way. And I got to create that song with Kasey and Brando. Really lucky to have done that and to have been understood enough that they could, you know, write with me and about me. Yeah, it was really special.
So when it came to recording the vocal, because it's a phenomenal vocal, I'm wondering if it was you've done all this work basically on yourself as a person and as an artist. Was it a case of arriving in the studio and you could just feel how to sing it pretty much straight off the bat, like one take or hardly any takes, or did it take a bit of finessing to get to what you wanted?
That one we just knew it was going to find its own way. The way that we practiced it and we'd sing it just when we were writing the song, we might be writing the second verse, but we'd start back at the first line and just to sing it, you know. So I think in terms of guitar, we had it down pat. It was just a matter of putting a band with that, and it came together so beautifully. And I think we did maybe 2 or 3 run-throughs of it in the studio, and that was it. We had what we wanted.
Well, so it was recorded live, as in the band playing.
Yeah, we had a whole band. I had a whole band. We recorded the album in 4 days.
Okay.
We had a whole band. It was incredible. I mean, the fiddle player and the piano player were added later, but and also Bill Chambers plays the lap steel, and he played that. He was added later as well. But we had our own rooms and set up with drums and a few guitarists and a bass player. It was so cool.
So, because now I'm extremely impatient to hear the rest of the album, because I've been waiting since 2014 for this album, Mitchell. But for you now, but you're still working with horses. You're obviously on the land, and you now have this reality of music coming out, and probably looking ahead, thinking, is there going to be a tour, all those sorts of things. So, does it feel like this is all manageable now that because you have sort of done it? You did the Outback Spectacular, then you went home. You've managed your life between parts of Australia, I guess. So are you feeling okay about what's ahead?
This is still very uncharted waters, right? I've been lucky enough to have some really awesome fans over the years, and I didn't really know I had fans, but I guess when you sing for 24 years, you probably have a few people that remember who you are. And yeah, I've been really lucky. So now I forget what you've asked me because I'm thinking.
I was like, how are you feeling about the future? Like putting together releases.
That's why I forgot it, because I was trying to suppress it. I am really nervous. I won't lie. I'm really nervous. And why am I nervous? Because it means a lot. It means a lot to me that that I put out good music and that it is heard by people that appreciate it, and that I could have a life doing this. So yeah, I'm really nervous, and that's why, because it means a lot to me.
Yeah. Well, I'm a pretty hard marker, and the first time I heard that song, I was like, okay, we are off to the races here. No pun intended, given you work with horses. But as I said, I saw you over a decade ago, and every now and again it will pop into my brain. I would think, has he released any music? Have I missed something? What's going on? So now I'm delighted that this song is coming out.
Yeah, thanks. Me too, actually. Very delighted. It's the perfect one because I'm not nervous about the song at all. I know it's the one to be the first one. It's just the fact that you're putting something out there for the first time.
Yeah, well, it's fantastic. People will love it. I am sure it will be on playlist, it'll be on radio, and then you'll have to contend with arranging your schedule around going and playing for those fans. I am going to leave it there. I'm sure there'll be more to talk about once the album is out. But Mitchell Steele, it's been
Yeah.
fantastic to talk to you. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Sophie. It's been great to talk to you as well.